Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about how to build AI in Tableau with MCP and Agentforce 360. Before we begin, just a friendly reminder to please make your purchasing decisions based on products and services that are currently available. And thank you so much for taking the time today. We really appreciate you taking the time wherever you're joining us from. So I'm here today with Justin Craycraft. He's a principal solution engineer, or a distinguished solution engineer from Tableau and Salesforce. He's been here for 12 years, and he's based in Austin. That's where one of our first Tableau offices was started.
Gosh, you're making me feel like a dinosaur. Tara's been here for 8 years. This is Tara Morton. She's a product manager, and she's based in the Kansas City area. So this is what we're going to cover. We're going to cover what is Tableau MCP, what's the difference between MCP, LangGraph, and Agentforce. Then we're going to do a deep dive on Tableau LangChain. And then we have a live demo we're going to give you, and then discuss the roadmap.
So first, what is the Tableau MCP? Model Context Protocol acts as a common language for large language models, or LLMs. The Tableau MCP specifically is an open and secure analytics integration. It empowers agents and humans to have access to our Tableau published data sources, whether in Tableau Server or in Tableau Cloud. So what's the architecture of this? The Tableau MCP gives our ability for any of your favorite agents, whether you're using your favorite APIs like the REST API or the VDS, with the governance and security that you have already set up in your published Tableau data sources in Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud to interact with your data sources wherever they are. So this could be your underlying data in Salesforce, in Snowflake, in dbt, and because we're using the Tableau MCP, we can use this together in this open source way with other MCP servers, like the Snowflake MCP or the dbt MCP. So what actually happens when we use the Tableau MCP? Tableau MCP gives our AI client a set of tools that helps us answer our questions about our data. So how does this work with Tableau Server and Tableau Cloud? When the user asks a question in natural language, the LLM makes a tool call and translates this question into a tool call. Then the Tableau MCP translates that into the right type of API to answer our question. And we send this to a published data source in Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud. And then we get an answer back in natural language that we can understand. So, Justin, what's a question that we could ask in Claude, for example?
What are the top sales by state?
Okay. So if we wanted to know what are the top sales by state or what are the top states by sales, how does Claude know what to do?
So we pass that natural language question over to Claude along with the MCP call. It looks at the metadata, determines the calls that we need to make, makes that call, and then sends the response. It summarizes that and sends it back to the user.
Awesome. So that's how agents and humans can work together to answer questions about our data using the Tableau MCP.
Okay, so what's the difference between MCP, LangGraph, and Agentforce? So Agentforce and LangGraph are the frameworks that you use to build the agents. The agents offer the orchestration layer, the memory, cross sessions, as well as the reasoning engines to help the agent determine what to do within the logical flow of this conversation. So in our example, when humans are asking questions in natural language, the agents act as the decision maker on what tools to call. As part of that process, the Tableau MCP exposes the appropriate metadata to help it make some of those decisions. So together, humans working with MCP and agents are now enabled to make data-driven decisions. What is LangChain architecture? So let's take a deep dive into this. We give the LangChain agent tools, and it's the wrapper essentially. The MCP is like the wrapper for these tools. It passes that to the LLM, so grounding that LLM in the capabilities so that it can determine what function calls to make to get that answer. So behind the scenes, now Tableau has the appropriate metadata to construct that JSON query, pass it to Tableau, query the VizQL Data Services API, and get that response back. The great thing about this is it respects all of the authorizations and the row-level security and the governance included in that semantic model that's published up on Tableau server. So all of those APIs that are built in as tools to the MCP follow that governance and enforce that data security.
Awesome.
Okay, so Tara, go ahead and show us how this works in practice.
Perfect. So we're going to take a look at a project called Alice in LangChains. So we're going to build an agent named Alice in LangChain. So we're going to start by importing the LangChain Tableau project. So we're going to use pip, so that means we're using Python. You can find this code at our GitHub at Tableau-LangChain. You can also search for the LangChain starter kit for another example. So we're going to import the packages that we need first. So we're going to use OpenAI in this example. You can use any that you prefer. And we're going to create a React agent. This is a ready-made agent that we can use using this command. And then we're going to import the data source QA tool. We're going to need this to query our data sources. And we're going to get that from Tableau. We're going to initialize our LLM. So here we're using that ChatGPT 4.0 mini model. Again, you can use any model you prefer. This is just an example. Temperature is a hyperparameter. Now, these are non-deterministic, so that means we can't guarantee the response is perfect. But we can use temperature to help us control the response as much as possible. Less than 0.5 is more focused and safe. Better when we're asking questions about data, when we want the right answer. Something greater than 0.7 is better when we want creative responses, like when we're asking a model to help us write a story. So in this case, we're setting the temperature at 0. All right, now we're going to set a tool or create a tool for our agent to use. In this case, we're using that initialized simple data source QA. We're going to use this later. Don't worry about the code under that just yet. All right, so we've got 3 main tools that our agent can use. We're using these APIs from Tableau. The metadata API gives us information about our data, so context about our data sources. The pulse stress API gives us information about trends from our pulse metrics and how they change. And the VizQL Data Service, or VDS, helps us actually query our data sources and ask questions about our data. And because we're using that analyzed data source, we want to query our data, so that means we want that VDS. All right, now the rest of that big block of code. This is where we're going to give information about our Tableau server or Tableau site so that it can actually access and give us information about our Tableau data sources. And we're going to move on next to show where we're going to get that information. Our domain is the first part of our URL, so everything up until tableau.com. Our site name is everything after the word site, there's a slash, everything after that slash up until the next slash. That's your site name. All right, there's a data source LUID, L-U-I-D. To find that, you're going to go to Explore, then up to where it says Top Level Projects in the center of the screen, change that to All Data Sources. Then scroll down and find the data source that you want to use. Click on the icon for that data source. Then go to the top right corner of the screen. There's a little eye with a circle. Click on that circle. And then in the little dialog box, there's that LUID. You want the entire thing. Copy that and paste that. That's your data source ID that you're going to use. All right, coming back, now we're going to assign those tools. So tools equals, that's where you're going to use that analyze data source. That's how we're going to get that agent, that tool that we're going to use. And remember, you're using BizQL data service, the VDS, so it can query our data sources and give us information. Now the fun part. We get to actually build and run our agent. And remember, this time I'm naming my agent Alice, because I want to go ask Alice. So we're going to name Alice, that create React agent, and then we're going to run our agent. So we're going to say messages, we're saying Alice's name again, and we're going to invoke with a message. And you get to name yourself too. So hi, I'm Tara. You can say anything for your name, but I put my real name here this time. And we can ask a question. And I remember Justin wanted to ask, what are our top states by sales? So we typed that question here. Zooming out, here's everything we just did. So we initialized, we added the packages we needed, we used OpenAI in this case, but you could use any model that you want, any provider that you want, and then we got to run our agent. All right, and then moving further, if you want to go further, you can embed this. Next slide. So then we can see this right on a dashboard, right in the flow of work. And here, we can see our message, and we can see our results. And you continue asking questions, getting more information about your data. All right, I'm going to hand it back to Justin so he can show us more and how to do this in Agentforce.
Awesome, thank you, Tara. Now I'm going to go through a live demonstration. I got to switch over and mirror my display here. Okay. Okay, so imagine now I am in this embedded experience. I'm logging into my banking app here, and let me minimize this. And it's giving me at my fingertips a good look at my account balance of both my checking and my savings, how that's trending over time, where I spend different money, and then I have my recent transactions, so my deposits, my withdrawals. But further extending this experience and delivering analytics where your users are now allows you to have this conversational chat with AI powered by these agents and powered by Tableau MCP. So let's take a look. Do I have access to a data source called conference Justin's conference expenses? So it's reaching out with that natural language question. It's including the tool's metadata. The LLM is going to respond. The orchestrator will then get that response, call the appropriate tool. It's called list data sources with a filter. It found the data source. So what Tara mentioned is there's a name, there's a LUID, and then that data source has been published to a project. Now it's asking me, hey, do you want to know what fields and what structures what the structures of the data look like in that semantic model? So let's say yes here. So now it's, again, sending the tools. It's determining which tool. It's going to say list metadata on that actual data model. That's a BizQL request. And I get back my categorical field. So I have category, description, merchant, the trip name, city, conference, and amount. So let's start asking some questions. You'll see here down at the bottom, it also prompts the user to ask specific questions. So let's look at the total expenses by category. Again, sending the natural language question, it's going to select the right tool. It's going to send the fields from the metadata. It's going to determine the payload, and then the MCP server will eventually query the VDS API and get the answers. So here it's broken down the expenses. I can see my number one expense, no surprise, airfare. There's a little bar chart. I had some colleagues here that helped me contribute to that bar tab. We call that networking. And then followed by food, hotel, and miscellaneous. So these are the overall expenses. Let's break this down and see if there's one particular conference or the other that's the most expensive. So out of these 3 conferences, there's one in San Diego, that's the Tableau conference, and then there's 2 in San Francisco, TDX and Dreamforce. And here it breaks down those conferences. So Dreamforce is the most expensive. What contributes to Dreamforce being the most significant expense? So it does a comparison here, and it shows you like the breakdown by a percentage of the total. What are the key findings? What contributed to it? So food expenses, airfare, of course, hotel. What were the top food expenses? See if anybody recognizes some of these restaurants and venues and coffee shops. Some of these probably look familiar. I see some coffee on there. I had to get caffeine. Let's break this down a little bit further. How much did I spend on coffee? So it gives me my total here, and if you break that down per day, approximately how much caffeine did I consume on a daily basis? This is really interesting because here it's actually going to use its own intelligence within the LLM, but it's going to take the data and try to extrapolate the amount of caffeine. So it's going to make some assumptions on the total cost, and the model and the agent are doing some reasoning here and deciphering when to go to the data source to get the information, and then when to complement that with the LLM's own intelligence, which is really cool. And then making some reasonable assumptions using its reasoning engine to break it down, the total cost by the average cost per cup, and then backing that into the average number of caffeine in milligrams per cup of coffee. So safe to say, it looks like I'm kind of right there where the FDA says, okay, you're still healthy, you're not over-consuming coffee, you're staying attentive, you're attending a conference, you're not drinking too much. But you see where this can go, that you can actually now complement the agentic conversation and ground it in real data, governed data, and then ask additional type of questions. So that concludes the demonstration. Let me go back to the deck here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and cover the roadmap.
All right. So coming soon, we've got some hosted solutions, and then recently released, we made it much easier to install Tableau MCP, set it up, get going with just a few clicks in Cloud. And then coming soon, we're going to have some admin solutions, so you're going to be able to administrate from Tableau MCP. We've got some resources here, including those GitHubs we mentioned earlier, and also a 5-minute video showing you how to set this up in your environment. You can also reach out to us on LinkedIn if you've got any questions or just a follow. We put up some different resources for you. We'll give you a second to scan that if you'd like. And then we will stick around for a bit. If you've got any questions, we can meet you off to the side. Thanks again. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
And we are a data-driven company. Let us know your feedback.